Have you ever woken up, checked your phone, and found something so disturbing that it changes the way you look at your reality forever? Stop and think about this for a moment. Imagine your phone, that piece of technology we depend on for everything, turning into a medium for something you can't explain, something supernatural. This story starts exactly there, in that strange, unexplainable space. Stay watching, because by the end of this story, you may never look at your phone the same way again. Last night was supposed to be just another fun night out. Drinks at a casual bar, laughter, stories shared, and jokes that don't seem as funny now as they did after the third margarita. Everything appeared normal. Friends, music, good vibes, and nobody, not even for a moment, could have guessed what the night was about to set in motion. But here's what makes it chilling. This isn't a story about what happened at the bar. It's about what happened afterward. When I woke up this morning, groggy and aching from what was clearly the aftermath of a night of indulgence, my first ritual kicked in. I reached for my phone to scroll through messages, assuming I'd find maybe a few drunken texts from friends. But instead, I was greeted by dozens, no, at least 50, text messages sent during the early hours of the morning. The sender? Me. And no, I wasn't drunk texting myself for laughs. Here's the kicker. These weren't just random garbled texts saying LOL or OMG. Each message was like an ominous whisper. They warned about events. Shocking, horrifying events that hadn't yet occurred but were about to unfold. My hands trembled as I scrolled through. One message read, "Stay away from glass windows today at 8:30 a.m. Strange, right? But hold up, it gets worse. Another said, "Avoid the corner of Main and Maple at twilight. It's not safe." The messages were specific, detailed, and they carried a terrifying tone. Chills ran down my spine. How did I type these? Why couldn't I remember? What did they mean? Let's pause for a second. Imagine waking up to messages like these. You'd probably think it was a prank, right? Or that somehow you sleep texted. A bizarre phenomenon, but not impossible. This wasn't that. These texts had too much intent behind them. They weren't jokes, and there was no trace of my usual typos. They were as though another version of me, hidden in the folds of reality, had taken over and typed them. The clock read 8:25 a.m., only 5 minutes until the first event the messages warned about. The warning. The one about staying clear of glass windows. I just shrugged it off as nonsense at first, but that feeling of unease refused to leave my chest. I decided to take it semi-seriously and moved away from the big glass window in my apartment. You know how you get those gut instincts? This was like that, amplified. Then it happened. At exactly 8:30, a loud crash shook my entire block. Peering out cautiously, I realized a bird, a huge bird, had slammed into the glass window of the apartment across from mine. It shattered the entire panel. Glass shards exploded everywhere, falling stories below. One passerby narrowly missed a deadly injury. My knees buckled. Was this what my message meant? I couldn't brush it off anymore. These weren't drunken scribbles or meaningless coincidences. The messages were warnings. Warnings I'd sent myself. And if that first one could predict an event, then what about the others? The message about Maine and Maple came flooding back into my mind. Twilight was hours away, but my anxiety skyrocketed as I replayed the text over and over in my head, like a broken record. How could I just go about my day when this looming cryptic thing was hanging over me? I'll admit, part of me wanted to erase all of them and pretend this morning never happened. See, humans have this incredible gift. We're excellent at rationalizing things, even when faced with the unexplainable. But curiosity? That's an itch you can't really scratch away, is it? Skipping ahead a bit, the day went by painfully slowly. Twilight came creeping in sooner than I wanted, and I found myself pacing my living room. The idea of going to the corner of Main and Maple terrified me, but who doesn't want to know the truth? What if ignoring the warning was a bigger mistake? Deciding to confront whatever lay ahead, I grabbed my coat and headed out. Was it stupid? Maybe, but I had to know if these messages carried more truth than coincidence. The streetlights had just flickered on when I arrived. Everything seemed mundane at first. People strolling, cars honking in the distance. But then I realized I'd stepped right into the splash zone of something horrific. A loud screech of tires pierced the air before an awful metallic crash erupted just ahead of me. A truck had lost control and veered into the intersection. If I hadn't stayed back cautiously thanks to the chilling message, it might have been me lying in the mangled mess there. Once again, the texts were terrifyingly accurate. Frozen, I thought about what all this meant. These weren't accidents. They were tragedies I narrowly avoided due to some forewarning from me? Or was it something using me? And if something was, what was its purpose? I needed answers, but the texts stopped as suddenly as they started. No more came that night, or the next. What kept me up, though, wasn't just the mystery of why or how. It was the horrifying realization that my past self, or some ghostly entity, knew details about catastrophes. If it knew then, can it still see ahead? Worse yet, how does it decide what I should be warned about and what not to? Several weeks have passed now, and the messages haven't come back. Yet my sleep has never been the same. Every dream feels electric, heavy with implications. And the paranoia? Oh, that hasn't left either. I can't scroll through my text history without holding my breath. I don't know if it was fate, if I'm haunted, or if I've somehow cracked open a door to a realm where time and information bleed together in baffling ways. But that's my story. The chilling, inexplicable series of messages that saved my life but left behind something darker. The final questions linger. Who really sent those texts? And if it's possible to see disasters before they happen, is it possible to stop the ones you haven't been warned about? So the next time your phone buzzes at odd hours, maybe check it. You might just find a message there, one you never expected. And hey, who's to say it won't be from you? Trust this text, it might say. And then what? Would you listen? After hearing this, I think you probably will.